Hello, this is Ruslan Belov. I want to say a few words about the main news before we move on to analyzing the situation on the front. Of course, the biggest news is that Putin has announced a ceasefire for May 9th. But not just for May 9th, not just for Victory Day, but for 3 days, from the 8th to the 11th. I'm curious to hear your opinion. What do you think about this? Do you view it positively or negatively? Do you support it or not? Write your opinion in the comments. Well, for now, the fighting continues, so we will also continue to examine the situation on the front. Let's open the map. So friends, today we're going to analyze a massive breakthrough, by the standards of the current conflict, that our fighters have managed to achieve. And the Ukrainian Armed Forces, VSU, are also in shock, especially at how swift the advance was and how quickly their positions were overrun. Some of them were captured, while the rest simply fled. This event, which I'm telling you about, happened in the Sumy region, and it's visible to the naked eye almost from space. Look here, the area marked in red. This is the territory that came under our control yesterday. Impressive, right? Even without any measurements, it's clear that it's a significant area. We're not talking about 1, 2, or 5 square kilometers, it's much larger. Well, let's measure it to know exactly what numbers we're dealing with. So if we take the stretch from Lokhnya north to Zhuravka, we get almost 7.5 kilometers. 7.5 kilometers, a colossal result. Even when we're dealing with advances of 2 or 3 kilometers, we consider that a very good result, and it is. But here, it's more than twice that. If we measure this way, we get over 4 kilometers, also very impressive. Here, it's 2.5 kilometers, and here about 4. Overall, a very significant event. The total area of this territory, marked in red, which has come under our control in the Sumy region, has exceeded 23 square kilometers. And most importantly, thanks to this breakthrough, the total territory we control in the Sumy region, I repeat, the total, not the grey zone, but 100% controlled, has now surpassed 100 square kilometers. Remember how Zelensky claimed that his Kursk operation was meant to protect the Sumy region? Well, I'd like to ask now, how's that working out? Mission accomplished, right? What's more, I'll tell you this. Before the VSU's invasion of the Kursk region, no one seriously considered or planned an advance into the Sumy region, especially since no forces were concentrated here for such an operation, as Zelensky later claimed. Because if there had been a force grouping here, the VSU's invasion would have failed immediately. But now the army is pushing deeper and deeper into the Sumy region, breaking through the VSU's defenses. And it has no intention of stopping. These massive advances of multiple kilometers are just the first alarming signs. And I'll tell you, it's going to get worse. If anyone thinks that our army's goal in the Sumy region is just Yunakivka, they're badly mistaken. No, it's not just Yunakivka. Let me say a few more words about the Sumy region. What do we have at the moment? Lokhnya. The Ukrainian armed forces only hold the southern outskirts of the village, the part adjacent to Yunakivka, where they constantly bring in reinforcements. The rest is still a grey zone, but with the kind of advances we're seeing now, it will soon be under our control. Belovody, essentially, it's semi-encircled. Our forces are positioned on 3 sides, west, north, and east. From the north, near Zhuravka, attempts are already being made to enter the outskirts of Belov. There's no stable result yet, but it will come. And another important figure worth mentioning. The depth of our advance into the Sumy region, if we take the sector from Sverdlikovo, is now almost 11 kilometers. 11 kilometers, that's how deep we've penetrated into the Sumy region. A very significant result. And you know what the difference is between us and the VSU? When the VSU entered the Kursk region, they took a significant amount of territory, but then lost more and more each day, and now they have nothing left. They don't even control a single square kilometer in the Kursk region. Our forces, on the other hand, didn't take much territory at first, but every day they steadily increased the amount of land under their control. That's the key difference. Some take land and then lose it again, and end up with nothing. Others take it step by step, steadily, and it remains under our control. Well, now let's move on to other sectors of the front. Fortunately, the Kursk sector is no more, and there are no changes in the Belgorod region for now. The Ukrainian armed forces are holding on to 3 tree lines and periodically try to enter Dnipropetrovsk, though without success. That's pretty much it there. In the Kharkiv region, things are more interesting. We've finally managed to secure Kamyanka. Let me remind you, this is a village on the right bank of the Oskil River that was preventing us from merging 2 bridgeheads into a single continuous front line. Well, now it's no longer an obstacle. The VSU have been pushed out of the village, and it is now under our full control, something the Ministry of Defense has officially confirmed. As a result, the Dnipropetrovsk bridgehead has now transformed into a unified front line, stretching almost 40 kilometers. It's hard to say how events will unfold here next, as the pace of advancement in the Dnipropetrovsk area has noticeably slowed. The capture of Kamyanka is the first significant development in this sector in a long time. Will this success be built upon? We'll see. I'm not overly optimistic about it because, again, the last few weeks here have been quite difficult. But just before recording this video, news came in that the Russian army has taken control of the settlement of Doroshovka today. Where I do see more reason for optimism is the situation on the flanks of Pokrovsk, especially the eastern flank. Even Ukrainian cartographers couldn't hold out for long and eventually marked Berezovka as ours. But they're still being a bit deceptive here, because from Berezovka, movement toward Novaya Poltavka has already been confirmed, and at this point we've managed to reach the southern outskirts of the village. This means the road to Konstantinovka has effectively been cut off, which will definitely play a role in the future, since Konstantinovka is one of the key areas of the summer campaign. Next, the Pokrovsk direction, the offensive toward Pokrovsk and Dnipropetrovsk region. Russian units of the Center Group are advancing along the entire length of their front line, while elements of the 41st Army are pushing west between the Rechitsa and Solenoy rivers. Units of the 2nd Army are advancing north of the river, near the settlement of Udaknoye, where attempts are being made to seize the railway station. The Russian armed forces reached its eastern part the day before and are now trying to storm it. The station is the key to the village. Losing this area will automatically lead to the VSU losing control over the rest of the settlement. In the Kotlin area, Russian forces have not only finished pushing the VSU out of the village, but have also taken the northern farm, fully restoring their positions here, the same ones they held before the VSU's counterattack in February-March. Additionally, the Russian armed forces managed to advance along the railway tracks toward Pokrovsk, reaching platform number 13, where they have now entrenched themselves. Near Zverev, the Russian army has already taken almost the entire village. Only the westernmost outskirts remain under VSU control. They are now trying to take the Terrakon slag heap to the south, one of 2 that dominate the southern approaches to Pokrovsk. Behind the second Terrakon lies the administrative boundary of the city itself. There are also attempts to push along the railway tracks toward Chunushina station, where some tactical successes have been achieved. Positive news is also coming from the sector near the Dnipropetrovsk region. Here, we managed to advance from Nadezhdinka through the fields, with a penetration depth of 1.5 kilometers. Accordingly, this pocket is being gradually cleared. We're also working to straighten the front line near Kotliarovka in order to enter the village in force and completely drive out the VSU, because so far, this task remains unfulfilled. I think I explained why yesterday or the day before in a previous update. Now, let's move a bit further south. The main fighting here is concentrated around the settlement of Bogatyr. The latest success of the Russian armed forces is reaching the southeastern outskirts of the village and notable advances from the south, which could allow for a full-scale assault. Over the past few days, Kiev has repeatedly and unsuccessfully tried to dislodge Russian forces from this area. In these battles, they are grinding down their assault units, which will undoubtedly have consequences in the future. At the same time, the Russian armed forces continue their attempts, so far unsuccessful, to infiltrate the outskirts of Alexeyevka. Fighting continues on the approaches to the Dnipropetrovsk region. In recent days, Russian assault troops have taken advantage of the newly grown foliage, greenka, and weather conditions. The day before yesterday, there was a storm, hail, and rain, which temporarily neutralized Ukrainian FPV drone operations in this sector. This allowed Russian forces to push the VSU back across much of the so-called interfluve between the Vovcha and Solena rivers. As a result, the settlement of Novoalexandrovka in the Solena River Valley has been fully taken. On the eastern flank, near Sergeyevka, Russian troops advanced along the overgrown northern bank of the river and managed to consolidate their positions. It's worth noting that in Uspenovka, these actions have left some encircled Ukrainian troops, marked on the map with a blue ring, holding a few houses in the northern part of the village. They've been blocked for now but not yet stormed. Overall, we're seeing that units of the center grouping are advancing both toward the Pokrovsk agglomeration and from the Udaknoy area, while also trying to reach the borders of the Dnipropetrovsk region. In general, there weren't many major advances yesterday, but the 7.5-kilometer breakthrough in the Sumy region more than made up for it. If we had breakthroughs like that more often, Kiev might start begging for negotiations on its own, because they'd realize that every day of delay costs them enormous amounts of territory. Well, that's all I have on the frontline situation for today. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you liked this video, and stay tuned.